Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And tonight's episode, I'm joined by our stat research assistant, Luke Alexander here. As always here, I'm joined by Jake Carlson and Alexi Bollwerk as well, too, for week 12 of the college football season. Recapping, of course, Oklahoma State's win 23-0 over those goofball copycat Texas Tech Raider fans who decided to do a blackout right after we did a blackout. And I'm sorry, you know what, Texas Tech, you guys blacked out. You lost 23-0, and you lost the blackout battle. So we won it. It was nice. So, anyways, I added the intro music in post, so we've got a little less jive going. But either way, I'm in person with Alexi because Thanksgiving break. Yeah, good to. Alexi doesn't get to stay in Oklahoma City because his family all lives in St. Louis. But his Cardinals fandom will stay through because every single Cardinal was elected to the Gold Glover, Silver Slugger.
We had like five.
Yeah. So
five Gold Glovers. Yep.
So 5. So more than half the field. Yeah. Anyway.
So the Cardinals can field, but we had 4 Silver Sluggers. So,
Hey, and you have a World Series this year, so I think you guys win this year.
Yeah, I think the only person who's taken an L so far in the MLB season is myself with the Padres.
Padres.
4 L's, but we're walking a couple steps forward now that we have the A's manager, whatever his name is. So, anyways, with that being said here, we're definitely going to talk much more about the Oklahoma State football season.
You just glossed over the fact that you guys got the A's manager, even though that happened a little bit ago. I know I didn't really want to go on a baseball tangent today, but I will say, Alexi, that was probably one of the more weird things that didn't get talked about enough to start the offseason is the fact that the A's manager's up and left.
Well, because so this is a college football podcast. I understand you're seeing the title as the Bedlam preview or the college football preview. So 2 more seconds on Padres baseball real quick here. Bob signed back with the A's, and then I believe less than 24 hours or so later, he signs as a Padres manager. So, listen, the Padres stole Bob from the A's. That's great, fantastic, and we're all set, right? The Padres are. I mean, I think we have a better manager than we did before.
It was odd.
No, I mean, not mad at Jace, but I'll take a seasoned manager who's taken teams that haven't had a big payroll and now gets to do things with the team that does have a big payroll. So I'll take it.
From what it looks like, the A's are just about to unload everything they have on their roster. Because
that's going to be. Yeah.
Wasn't it Matt Olson they're talking about trading?
Yeah, Matt Olson and Matt Chapman.
It's so stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the A's. That's how they work. That's how they work with their business of baseball is get some guys who can be good for a couple years and then just ship them off and get something for it and just be cheap and be one of the lowest payroll teams in baseball.
Well, it appears my good friend Will brought up a good point today. He said if the Rays are paying somebody, that means they know something that we do not. Which probably means that we will be getting a salary floor this year. I would imagine that's coming through in the CBA, so that's going to be
interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Wander Franco, $200+ million.
Yeah.
Then they know something that all the other teams probably know, but all the other teams are also above the cap, and the Rays just like to.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's something that you'd never see the Rays do. So. Big move on their end.
I don't know, Luke, any other comments here about Padres baseball during the middle of November? No? None? All right. Luke's the other Padres fan here, so I just had to ask. Well, with that being said here, in case you missed it, again, we shut out the Red Raiders. What were your guys' reactions over the game? Good, bad, mediocre? I mean, I thought we played pretty darn incredible. I'll just lead off saying we held them scoreless. We shut them out. Wish we could have scored one more touchdown. I think 30-0 would have been nice, but I don't think it means I don't think scoring one more touchdown means we're any higher in the college football playoffs standings, right? I don't think that I think if we had scored 60. I don't know. Maybe that makes a difference. 60-0 is incredible, 30-0 probably doesn't make a huge difference. 30-0 sounds nicer than 23-0. But, I mean, I thought it was a really good game. And you know what? We kind of played like we always do. We didn't have a great offense, and then all of a sudden we did have a good offense, but our defense played incredible the whole time.
The only way we are any better is if you want to go back like 80 years and start over with a historically good football program that makes more money than the other two. Because if we're being honest, that's why Notre Dame and Michigan are ahead of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's at that point, that's just stupid. I don't get why they're not even going to give us any credit. I mean, it's been like that all year, but just to kind of go off of what Calvin said, it's what we've said all week. I don't know if there's anything really new to say about this Oklahoma State team. I think the defense just continues to prove how legit they are. Like, they aren't just good, they're really freaking good. And they shut out Texas Tech. Like, if you want to say, oh, it's Texas Tech, like, they're not that good, they're just an average Big 12 team. No, they shut Texas Tech out. And that was, I believe, the first time in like 34 years that's happened at home. So really impressive for the defense to do that. Of course, you'd like to see the offense do a little better, but I think a positive is Spencer Sanders is keeping it clean. He's not turning the ball over. So a lot of positives on that end. We need that to happen against OU. So that's what I would take away from the game, is just seeing how well Sanders did with protecting the ball.
And I will say, since Iowa State, where we gave up 24 points, we have only given up 2 touchdowns in the last 4 games.
Yeah, that's incredible.
2 touchdowns, and those were to TCU in garbage time.
Yeah, wasn't that when we had our starters out of the game in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've done an incredible job about keeping the narrative about our defense alive, that our defense is really the strong suitor, but on the other hand, Sanders has played incredibly well, especially as of late. He's played within himself. I don't think he's tried to do too much. I think that's when we've had issues before as an OSU team, is we've just seen it where, I mean, if you try to force Sanders to do something, sometimes it's incredible. It's a Baylor touchdown right before half, in the end zone. It's like a 50-yard pass, and it's on the money. And other times, it's a bunch of turnovers, whether it be good or bad or whatever it may be. It's just... It's rough to see Sanders turn the ball over because he gets mad at himself too. We all do. But it's also tough just because we've seen it happen a lot. I've used that stat going into homecoming or so, or going into the Iowa State game. Sanders has the most amount of turnovers in college football since 2019, which is just a tough figure to see, period. But one thing I'll say about Sanders is that I wonder if he would always be playing this good later on in the season if he had just been able to stay healthy the past 2 years. Past 2 years, he's kind of gotten dinged up. We've seen good, bad versions of him. Last year's Bedlam game, I'm sure he wants to do better. Nobody's ever feeling 100% coming down the stretch in any sport, but especially college football. It's a grind. With all that being said, Sanders just is, he's had to sit out games. He's had to miss, back-to-back years playing West Virginia, for example. We haven't played West Virginia early on in the season necessarily at all. So it's nice to see him kind of progress throughout the season, and also I feel like he's getting better. I think earlier on this season, through the first 3 games, I would have said, I don't know if Sanders has gotten any better over his tenure at OSU. Now, though, I actually want to take that back a little bit. I think he has, and I just think it's a lot more of the confidence you get from playing multiple seasons, but also just starting, playing multiple games and being able to progress through a whole season. He's not been able to do that yet.
Right. And Calvin, you and I talked about this the other day and Alexi, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Calvin and I kind of both agreed that we didn't necessarily think Spencer Sanders was the problem with our offense. I mean, I don't necessarily think our offense has problems. I just think it's about as a Big Ten of an offense as you get. It's just lackluster. It's just plain. It's vanilla. It's what we haven't seen in the years past. But I don't necessarily think that falls on Spencer Sanders. I think we could have. To whoever's credit, whoever's calling plays, whether it be Gundy, whether it be Casey Dunn, or whether it be both of them, they have called very conservatively, and I think that probably contributes more to the offense than Spencer Sanders' ability or ability.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, from what I've seen, I mean, and I noticed this last week. I actually didn't really notice it the last couple of games, but I was actually able to sit down and watch the entire game this time. But it does seem like they play very conservative, and specific games they will do it last year and other years when they were actually had a high powering offense. But this year they absolutely are more conservative. They're running the ball a lot more. But what's kind of surprised me, and like I said, I noticed this more last week, so I don't know if it's been a trend all season or what, but I haven't really seen Sanders run as much as he did in the past. And I saw a little bit more this week where he took it a couple times. He made a good decision where instead of, throwing the ball or just doing something stupid, he took the ball and ran. There was room in front of him. But I haven't seen that as much this year. Have you guys noticed something like that? Like in terms of how much he's run? Because I feel like in the past couple of years he was running way more compared to this year.
Yeah, I will say when he has had the chance to like roll out, scramble, he's not really doing that as much. When he has the chance to scramble, he's just kind of more or less throwing it away or making the easy read or just tucking it for like 3 yards, 3-4 yards, whatever. He's making this decision early. He's not waiting to make the decision. Am I going to run? Am I going to throw? Or who am I going to throw it to? He's not waiting. He's just going. And I think that's what's been really nice to watch through his progression as well. Is I think he's gaining more confidence in his abilities, but he also knows himself a little bit better as a quarterback. Going back and like watching like a couple high school highlights, that was basically before he started OSU. Is when I was watching that when he's the highly touted Gatorade Player of the Year in Texas, 4-star recruit, etc. I was going, oh man, who's this guy? I got to watch some film, and I would go, oh man, he's electric. He's athletic. He's a Mariota type of guy. He's elusive. He can do a lot of stuff. But as you progress throughout your college career and as you just play better talent, you're able to get away with the same type of stuff. And I think that's been a big adjustment for him.
Sure.
Is that he's had to adjust in, not only am I going to get away with this, not going to get away with the same amount of stuff, but also I'm going to have to make decisions much, much quicker. Not a little bit or not make decisions at the same pace that I was in the championship game in high school, but make it way faster than that even. And I think he's progressed well. I think he really has. He either does the designed runs or he does the pass plays. And if neither are there, he may try to roll out, may try to scramble, but he hasn't really tried to kill our offensive line. The key thing I remember from this, though, and from your point, is the Tulsa game last year, right? So Tulsa this year is much different, but Tulsa last year, he goes out on the opening series. Oklahoma State's driving down, looking decent, looking pretty darn good against Tulsa, I'll say it, chopping up the field, and all of a sudden Sanders goes down with an injury. And you're like, oh no. And watching it, he basically goes away from protection. He rolls out to the right side, and he gets tackled. It looks bad. But he rolls away from his offensive line. He doesn't stay in the pocket. And it's like he's trying to, again, kind of force that issue. He's trying to play outside of himself. He's trying to do too much. And it injured him. And we didn't see him back for a while. Shane took over the reins. Looked pretty darn good, I'll say. I mean, we went on to win that game after we had another quarterback play in the middle between Sanders and Shane. We ended up winning the game, and we ended up winning the next couple of games, with Shane. But seeing Sanders kind of go, okay, wait, if I stay in the pocket protection, if I do exactly what I'm being coached for, or do exactly what I just know to do better at, then we do have a better shot at winning. I'll take it. I'm not going to say no.
And I will say, like, when I watch, so for example, like when I watch Clemson this year, I see a lot of that same stuff that DJ does that Spencer did. And I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Do you have any idea that you are probably supposed to roll out to the side that your arm is, not the other way, which I think we both agree Spencer Sanders tended to do. And I see DJ do the same thing, and it's like Alexi said, Spencer Sanders almost like runs the offense of an 11-6 NFL team. I mean, I compared him, I think before you got on Alexi, not saying he's an NFL quarterback, but like he runs the team where it's like, okay, I know my defense is good enough that it doesn't matter what I do. But I told Calvin, I think it was before you and Bo got on, that last week, very like almost Alex Smith-like.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Just like obviously he's not Alex Smith.
Right. Well, like comparable if you're trying to compare him to like an NFL player.
Yeah, like I don't think Spencer Sanders is necessarily an NFL quarterback. I think he could probably be a backup for 10 years if he wanted to.
Sure.
But I like when I saw that, because I thought Kaepernick had a little bit more in him than Alex Smith did. I mean, that seemed pretty evident that they went farther with Kaepernick. But, I think of that Alex Smith type where it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to put the ball in the hands of everybody else and see what they can do. And Calvin and I also talked the other day about how, like, Spencer Sanders has, like, one above-average receiver this year. Not saying the other guys are bad, but we just don't know what they could do.
Right. It's not like past years where he has, a guy like James Washington or, all those other guys we had in the past. Yeah.
Well,
Wallace.
You see it this year because they're not just, like, forcing the ball to Tylen like they did last year, where it's like, we're going to throw him unnecessary fade routes on 3rd and 1. It seems like this year they're actually running plays opposed to just the air raid stuff. So that all being said, that's a long way to say that I don't think this is any of Spencer Sanders' fault. I think this is just how the offense calls the game.
Yeah. That's accurate.
I really like how we're playing down the stretch here, but I got to say, OU beating Iowa State the way they did doesn't necessarily make me like worried, but OU did beat the one team that we've lost to by 7. Granted, kind of get into Bedlam's been the game. It's been the game every single year that all of us have looked at and go, oh my gosh, if we can win that game, then we're good, right? We've talked about it at length on the podcast about, if we can win Bedlam, then at least we go to the Big 12 championship, then at least this, then at least. I gotta say, this year, it doesn't matter. We win or lose Bedlam. We're still in the Big 12 championship, so it's nice to just have that mindset. Should be playing free and loose. But at the same point, we got the College Football Playoff rankings tonight. 2 teams that were ahead of us lost in the College Football Playoff rankings. And so we moved up a couple of spots, moved from 9 to 7, ahead of Michigan State and Oregon. There's ones who dropped out of the top 10, actually. But on the Bedlam game, what are you guys' thoughts here? How confident or unconfident do you feel about this game?
Look, this is not, and it may not matter anymore right now, but this is not the same Oklahoma team that we've seen in the past 4 or 5 years and maybe beyond. Like this, I've watched them multiple times this year, and they just don't seem like the same team. They struggle on offense. Yeah, their defense is obviously a little bit better, but last week, even against Iowa State, they didn't look that impressive to me. And the killer in that game was when Iowa State turned it over right before the half and Oklahoma scored. That was just total momentum changer. They almost blew the game at the end. So I think that's something that we have to look forward to. And we've looked the most complete team all year, in my opinion. I might have some bias toward that, but I really do believe that we've looked like the most complete team on defense. On offense, I mean, I just haven't seen the same explosiveness from Oklahoma that we've seen in past years, where that Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and
Jalen Hurts. Yeah.
So I think that if our defense, as we say it every single week, if our defense shows up the way it's been all year, I don't see us having a problem with this game. I really don't. And it does scare me that it's a rivalry game. It is, it's the game, like you just said, we always have to get up for it, and we always, we get killed in the game. But I think it's different this year. I think you can't mess with momentum, and this team is playing with tons of momentum right now. Winning that game on the road against Texas Tech at Lubbock, shutting them out, I think that's getting them ready for this game against OU, and I think we're going to make a statement.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. Jake, what about you? What do you think as well?
I don't want to say, not trying to jinx us, and as everybody that listens to the podcast knows, I don't discount OU at any, step of the road. I don't consider them a bad football team. I always give them their due, maybe to a fault. I know more than Calvin, to no fault of his own, but I know I usually give OU a little bit more praise than Calvin does. which, obviously, who cares? But like Alexi said, I mean, OU and OSU never play at the same time, so I'm usually watching the OU game because I have some sort of vested interest. Not that I necessarily care that they lose, but knowing that we have to play them at the end of the season every year. So, but you're right. They just haven't looked like Oklahoma. I mean, that's the best way I can say it, and it's more so one of those things like, why does our defense look so good? Because we haven't seen us play defense like this before. Why is everybody so down on Oklahoma this year? Because we haven't seen them look this just bleh.
Yeah.
In in 3 years. I mean, you talk about, 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks and Jalen Hurts, who was still in the top 5, I want to say. So, of course, this year they're going to look worse than they have in the past. That's not saying they're a bad football team, but of course they're going to look worse this year than they did with Baker, than they did with Kyler or Hurts or whatever. But we also look like a completely different team. We are not the same team that we have been the same amount of time as OU was. I mean, the last time we won was when Tyree took the punt back, right?
2014.
That year.
Mason's freshman year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Oklahoma wasn't very good that year, and we weren't very good that year. So, I mean, if you were just – I asked my friend this. My friend's a Georgia grad. And I asked him, I said, if you were to pick the teams, the 4 best teams that have looked the best, just flat out, if you just frame it that way, Oklahoma or OSU is in your top 4. If you are just going off of who has looked the best, it would be Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, and I mean, I wouldn't even say Cincinnati. I think this past week was really impressive, but if you look at I mean, if you look at the 2 weeks prior, it wasn't. It's not Michigan, and it's not Alabama.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not Ole Miss, so I don't know who the 4th team is. It would probably have to be Cincinnati. But sorry, Ole Miss, I'm not going to praise your wins over Liberty and Vanderbilt. I think you played Prairie View A&M in there or something. I don't know. But, if you're picking the top 4 teams that have looked the best over however long, we have looked within the top 4.
And that's what's... Yeah. No, you good?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. It's like you're looking at the top 4, and it's just to still have Oklahoma State at 7. It just continues to show that there's just no respect for them. And I mean, they're going to talk about offense. Like they talk about Ohio State's offense. Okay, yeah, it's good. But why can't we talk about Oklahoma State's defense as much as you talk about their offense? Like it's literally, we all know it. It's been dominant. The defense has been incredible. We gave up a total of, I just had it pulled up here, a total of 108 total yards at Texas Tech. That's incredible. And there was 74 total yards in the 4th quarter, almost at the end of the 4th quarter. I was like, wait, we haven't given up over 100 yards yet?
They had 25% of their yards was on one play, Of course. It was just a big 25-yard pass play there at the end.
Right. So, if you're going to talk about how, this offense is so good and explosive, but give us some respect and talk about the defense every week then. And tell us, wow, yeah, that was really impressive. They just beat Texas Tech on the road and shut them out and barely gave up over 100 yards. Because damn well if it was Alabama or if it was Ohio State, it's all we would hear about is that defense and how amazing it is and all the guys that are going to draft. Well, so it just continues to be pathetic, but I mean, if we beat OU, who is number 10 right now, and then we beat Baylor in the Big 12 championship, and they're going to be number at least 8 if they win, that's 2 top 10 teams we're knocking out in the final 2 weeks. So
that's got to help us out. You would think that would really help us out, right? You would think that would be the difference. I don't know if it will be. You would also think that Michigan's going to fall, right? So we're going to have to basically try to catapult ourselves. Okay, do we move above Alabama, Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame? Like, those are the 4 teams that no matter what, I mean, 3 of those 4 are not going to lose. Basically, I mean, it's not for sure, but it's Houston against Cincinnati, right?
Yeah,
which
likely
we were talking
be.
about before we started recording. Right. That can be a really tough matchup. But let's say Cincinnati wins, okay? Then they have their conference champion, right? That's Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So you got a non-power 5, but the non-power 5 has beaten the Notre Dame team, whose their only loss is to Cincinnati, granted at home, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Their best wins against Wisconsin. Luke was telling me about that over in the car right here.
Yeah.
It's like, Notre Dame, really? Okay, your best wins against Wisconsin? Whoop-de-freaking do. I think the script is truly flipped on, we picked the worst year to be good on defense, right? Like 5 years ago, this team's making the college football playoffs, and it's being talked about as well. I mean, they held Boise State to 20, and they held Missouri State to 20, and they held all these teams. And then down the stretch, they held teams to just a combined total of 23 points. I mean, our last 3 opponents we played, we held to a combined total of 23, I think. TCU 17, West Virginia 3, Tech 0. Last 4, because didn't we hold someone else to 3 points too? Or no, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. No, so last 3 teams 20 points.
No, you're right. Last 4 teams.
Last 4 teams to 23 points, right?
Kansas.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're a team that has historically horrible timing. We have a horrible timing wise to try to be good on defense. When everyone's go, oh, have you seen Ole Miss? They're putting up 50. What the heck? The SEC we were talking about 5-10 years ago about being the best defensive team in the country against all that mattered, and oh yeah, the Big 12, they score 180 points a game, whatever. Now it's, well, this Patrick Mahomes guy might be kind of good. So now all of a sudden we're looking at the offenses in the Big 12, and we're talking about how all their defenses don't matter for anything, because it's really the offenses that we can see if they're good or not. Because you got Baker, Kyler, Jalen. I mean, that's 3 OU quarterbacks who all are starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Kyler when he's healthy, of course, and Baker when he's fully healthy. It's just bizarre how the narrative's flipped there. But we'll say, at the end of the day, we do get the chance, as Alexi and you, Jacob, both said. We get the chance here to play 2 top 10 teams coming down the stretch. And granted, big if, not things are going to happen, but I'm not going to count the chickens before they hatch here. If we lose to OU, we still get to play OU again. We still get to avenge the loss. It still is a possible, hey, let's do it again. Let's run it back. We know we did wrong or whatever, right? A week later, which is a bizarre thing that the Big 12, that only has 10 teams, gets to play everyone. Gets to play the team you've already played once before. And it's nice we're not sitting here and going, oh my gosh, yeah, oh man, the tiebreaker doesn't fall for us. It's nice that this year, one of the last years that either OU and Texas might be in the Big 12, or either one of the last or the last year, we get to be the team that goes, no, we've got the tiebreaker. We are in the driver's seat, and because we've beaten the teams we needed to beat. We beat Iowa State. I mean, talk about an early season loss. That loss was a month. It feels like 3 months ago, but it was definitely a month ago.
It was just a month ago. Isn't that crazy?
But it definitely feels like 5 months ago.
It does.
And by the end of this podcast, I'll be saying it was 7 years ago.
Really does.
But it's just how it is. Like I'm much more of an Oklahoma State fan and much more of a passionate fan and a confident fan going into this weekend than I have been in previous Bedlam years. Last year, I really wanted to talk myself into it because it was like, God, Jalen Hurts, like, really, or is Kenny B, was that just last year?
Last year was Rattler.
That's right. So I think last year I was kind of doing the same thing. Oh, Rattler as he played, whatever. And 2 years ago it was, Jalen Hurts. Before then, I don't know what I was psyching myself up on, but granted the podcast has it recorded. If you want to go back and listen to it, I'll tell you that. It's just, I feel much better by going to this weekend's Bedlam game than I have in previous weekends. Also, you know what? I think it's really good we don't have College Game Day.
I know. You know what?
I think in years past, dude, game day's there. It's big. Let's get
Yeah.
whatever. Got to say, I worked 2 game days when I was during my 6-year tenure at OSU, and in both those game days, we lost OU badly, and it was a miserable game. One year I think it was kind of close, but the other year was just bad. And both times it was an ice bowl, and it was just miserable.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like annoyed, but I'm like, you know what? Of course they were going to go to Ohio State and Michigan for that game. Like, they weren't going to go to Bedlam because, Ohio State and Michigan, top 5 matchup, Big Ten. So when I saw that, I just laughed because I knew that was going to happen, and I got mad for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. It's game day. Like, those clowns don't know anything anyway. So whatever.
Yeah, and so I was watching as much of the ranking show as I could bear. But I will say David Pollack brought up a very good point, and he said, so what happens to Oklahoma State? He specifically said this, or Oklahoma for that matter.
Yep.
What happens to either of those teams if Alabama wins, if Alabama beats Georgia, Ohio State wins out, and Cincinnati wins out? He's like, because then you're going to have a team that just gets screwed.
Yep.
And it would be the Big 12 again. And the second thing that you guys were talking about, I am absolutely sick of seeing people saying, well, if Oklahoma State or if Oklahoma are to win out, then they'll be in the conversation with Notre Dame to be in the playoff. Why? Why are we even in the conversation with Notre Dame? Like,
yeah,
Notre Dame shouldn't be in the conversation with us. And somehow, this team allegedly has a top 10 strength of schedule. Somehow.
I don't get that. I don't get it at all.
I'm going to read their schedule to you. Florida State, 1-3. Toledo, 1-3. Purdue, Wisconsin, lost to Cincinnati. At Virginia Tech, 1-3. USC, UNC, Navy, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and then at Stanford to wrap up the year.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Is there a game on there that this Oklahoma State team loses? Or
I think
the Cincinnati game. Maybe the Cincinnati game.
That's the only game I see on there.
And I don't think we lose Cincinnati if it's at home. If it's right now, I don't think we lose Cincinnati. Cincinnati's allowed how many thousands of points, and they barely, they put up some points, but the Tulsa game, we've played Tulsa pretty similarly. The only exception is we played Tulsa much earlier on in the season before we got kind of rolling. Teams get better as they keep playing. And they played Tulsa recently here, and when they hosted game day, they played Tulsa. And they barely pulled that one out. It took a defensive, goal line stop for them, and then they even get the ball back, and then they almost screw it all up again, trying to just kind of just stay in the driver's seat to win the game. It's bizarre.
I mean, when you get to hand pick your schedule every year between mid-tier ACC, mediocre Big Ten,
yes,
and below average Pac-12, and that's your schedule, it's very hard for somebody to justify to me that Notre Dame has the number 4 strength of schedule with that.
Yeah.
Well, whenever anyone says what Notre Dame should not be independent, they get screwed when they're independent. No. They literally get every single benefit ever of being independent. They get the name recognition, they get the ability to pick their schedule, as you're saying, but also it doesn't matter because clearly they still get ranked higher than anyone else that has a loss. I mean, can you imagine Ohio State being ranked lower than Notre Dame going into this past weekend? People would be up in arms. They'd be going crazy. Can you imagine Notre Dame being ranked higher than Alabama? Going into this weekend or whatever. Well, Alabama's this, Alabama's that. Alabama's great wins are not the greatest wins. They've lost to Texas A&M. But all this to say, Notre Dame hasn't done anything close to what Alabama, Ohio State, or Oklahoma State have done. I mean, Our best win versus Notre Dame's best win right now.
I mean, you can even throw Michigan in there too. I mean,
my thing is I just thought about this when you guys were talking about it. It's hilarious because, like Jake just said, all these Notre Dame opponents are mid to bottom dwellers of their conference, and we're gonna sit here and pretend that all those teams they're all Power 5 teams. So we're just gonna say, oh, because they scheduled all those teams, we're gonna give them a pat on the back and a gold star because they're Notre Dame, and we're just gonna let them play USC, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and say those are all great wins. Whereas we're actually we're playing teams in our conference who are actually good, such as Baylor, Oklahoma, Kansas State, Texas until 5 weeks ago. But the point is, they're essentially playing. If you're gonna roast the Big 12 for not being good enough, Notre Dame's playing a garbage. Look at that schedule. They barely beat Florida State, and Florida State's garbage this year.
Iowa State is ranked with that schedule.
Yeah. It's like
I genuinely think that if Iowa State played that schedule, they're like
yeah, oh for sure. And if you put if you give Oklahoma State that schedule, same thing. But it's Oklahoma State. We're not Notre Dame. We don't have the name on our jersey that says Notre Dame, and that's what it all goes to. And unfortunately, I was talking about this with my friends the other day. And I think maybe you guys were on there too. I don't know who I was talking to, but these AP rankings at the beginning of the year, look back at it and just look at all the top brand names that were ranked, and now look at them. Florida was ranked. LSU was ranked. Texas was ranked. I'm sure I'm missing a couple.
Miami
was ranked. Yeah, there you go.
Miami was ranked.
And guess who?
10th when they played Alabama.
Guess who wasn't ranked?
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State was not ranked. And yet, here we are talking about brand names always having the benefit of the doubt, and Oklahoma State potentially being left out because we're Oklahoma State. We're not the blue blood of college football.
But it's even funny to me how the narrative gets switched. Iowa State was ranked 7th. And what are we doing?
That's another thing.
I mean, what are we doing? It was Breece Hall for Heisman. Yeah. And now you're looking at Oklahoma State team that has the number one rushing scoring and number one scoring and number one rushing team in the Big 12. Yeah. The Rodney Dangerfield can't get no respect really does apply here, because I feel at the end of the day it's both. It's both ways. We don't get any respect in basketball. We don't get any respect in football. And for as much stuff that Gundy's done throughout his tenure that I kind of roll my eyes and. Oh my gosh, there's is he going to Tennessee? Oh, it's just to get a better contract, all that type of stuff, whatever. I will say this. Oklahoma State this year, we have the driver's seat going into Bedlam. We do not have a quarterback controversy going on. I'm not out here asking for Shane Illingworth to start. But we look across the field, we look down 90 miles south down in Norman, and we get to say they have all of those issues. Lincoln Riley to LSU, to Florida, to somewhere else, Caleb Williams or Spencer Rattler. Can their defense hold anyone? I mean, at the end of the day, Iowa State scored 21 against them. They scored 24 against us. Not that much different, When it comes all down to it, at the end of the day, we're a really, really good football team. I believe we can keep being a really good football team, but OU's just been the bear. So I'll ask you guys during the middle of the podcast, and not at the very end, what's your prediction for this weekend's game? OU OSU. Because, we got to talk about the rankings a little bit more, I think, after this, and then kind of move on. So.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think that, like I said earlier, the confidence level of this team, I think, is just through the roof, and I think it's going to go into the Saturday. Being at home is going to be huge. I think we come out with a W. I think our defense continues to prove how amazing it is. Shuts them down. I think I'll give you a final score. I'll say we win. I'll say 24-13 final. 24-13.
All right. Jake, you want to go next or me too?
My final was 20-13. So
wow. Okay.
I think this game is going to be really, really, really sloppy.
Yeah,
it's not going to be. It's like going to be like Wisconsin, Iowa, bad. Like it's not going to be a very fun game to watch. The only thing that is the wild card so far, based off everything we've seen this year, OSU's been consistent with the defense, and Spencer Sanders has been consistent. It has nothing to do with what OSU does. It has to do with, I hope to God that this is not the game that Oklahoma feels like putting it all together. That's the only thing that we have to be concerned about. Their secondary can't cover anybody. They can't. I mean, that's not changing. But we've seen Oklahoma put it together offensively this year. Just not up to par. So is it going to happen against our defense? That would be really, really crazy timing.
Yeah.
And I think it could if we played them again. If ends up Baylor loses, whatever, I think it could. But so far, we've either nosed them to sleep, or we give up, basically enough, kind of points / give them a couple of things in the first half that ends up not hurting us. Kind of like the Texas game. I can see this game going a lot like the Texas game at the end of the day, where it's not necessarily a sloppy game. Like there's not a lot of turnovers, there's not a lot of, punts, but it's a sloppy game in the fact that the defense for OSU really has to show out the whole game. It has to really, really show out in the fourth quarter. But the offense kind of struggles the whole game. Because I don't think our offense is made some type of magical serum where we're going to be just incredibly good offensively against OU out of nowhere. We weren't really good offensively against Texas Tech through a half. I don't think that's going to necessarily change against OU. I think OU's defense is better than Tech's defense. I think OU's defense is probably a little bit better than Baylor's defense, to be honest. Maybe not, but it's kind of 50-50 there. And so it's going to be us to score defensively. I think if we can score a touchdown defensively, we win the game. I think if we win the turnover battle, all those cliches, we win the game. But, that being said, I think the score is actually going to be a little bit more in the OSU favor because we add in a garbage time TD or so. I'm going to say it's going to be 30-17. So I know that's kind of the same margins you guys are going with, but OU's going to score. I don't think there's going to be a point where we don't see OU ever just putting on points during the game, but I do think we'll be able to stop them in big, big spots at the end to really kind of going up and say, oh yeah, kind of like the Texas game. Oh, we held them to a yard of rushing or whatever it is in a quarter, and dominate it that way. Where it's at the end of the game. We kind of really put the clamps on, really put the brakes on, and we're able to just to say, hey, 10 years ago, we were just laughing, jawing it up, rushing the field 44-10.
Yeah.
And I would love to be it where it's 24-10, and we somehow add another 2 field goals or a touchdown, missed extra point, whatever it is, to make it 30-17 there down the final stretch. And we just feel good about it the whole game. I mean, of course, we'd all want an OU game just to go like that, but I think it'll be close for a while, and then hopefully at the end we can kind of just pull away.
Yeah, I think from years past, the thing that's been has had my confidence as high as ever is just knowing we have that defense. Because in years past, our defense has just been terrible. It's been awful. We've had times where it'd be 3rd and 15, and we knew that a first down was coming for the other team. It was just impossible. No way we were going to stop them. So knowing we have that lockdown defense that can shut down an offense any given week. I mean, look what we've done to teams who did amazing the week before. Texas Tech, they put up tons of numbers the week before. They put up numbers against Texas. They put up numbers against OU. Look at all the total yards. And we continue to shut down teams. So I think that's something to look forward to and be very confident about, that we actually have the defense to show up in a big game like this.
And one other thing I'll add here is this is, I think, the 5th or 6th or however many weeks in a row where we get to play a team after their best win of the season. Going into the OU game, I think OU's best win of the season, we've all got to say, we thought it was Texas. Now, clearly it's not, and it's Iowa State. Week before, Tech beat Baylor. We get to play Tech. Et cetera. We can just keep going back. We play TCU. TCU just beat Baylor. We can keep going back and back as it is. So we luck out. We get to play a team after they have a huge win, and it's honestly, if OU had lost to Iowa State, I don't know if I would have felt better going into Bedlam than I do now. I don't think it would have made a huge difference, to be honest. But it makes me kind of go, okay, you know what? Like, OU had their bounce back win against Iowa State. There's just a bunch of the narrative stuff makes me feel a little bit better on that end of, okay, well, their bounce back win's not going to come against, us. It was against Iowa State last week. Their Caleb Williams game was last week. Their, whatever game was last week. It wasn't like, oh, they just got blown out by Baylor, basically, and have a bunch of stuff, and then they gotta go, wow, the revenge games against OSU. It's like, nope. You know what? I'm going to say it's OSU. And also, for whatever it matters, ESPN's FBI percentage has us winning the game 54%. So I'll take it. Won't say I don't like it. Yeah. So, all being said, we got 15 minutes or so to talk about some college hoops we got going on here. Or Luke, we haven't heard from you yet, right, Mr. Producer, stats guy. What's your thought about the game?
Did you see Gonzaga?
No, the Bedlam game. The Bedlam game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We can talk UCLA. We can talk, UCLA Gonzaga. That game's a little bit later tonight. But what's your Bedlam score prediction, and how do you feel about going into the game?
Gotta say, I'm much happier talking about OSU than college basketball. But I see OU coming out getting 3 points on the board almost immediately, but then just slowing down. Running through quicksand right after their first drive. I honestly see us winning 34-13 as the final score, where they barely get anything going. And, it just, after the first drive, it's just tough for them to get anything done.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Well, that being said, we did win I wouldn't say it was a huge game, but we did win last night in Cowboy basketball by 30. 96-66. Score the most amount of points we have in any game so far this season. Grant season just started. But what's your guys' been like hoops take on OSU so far, and kind of update, I guess, from last week? Jake, I'll ask you first here.
We're really fun to watch. I think that's pretty much it in the season where we don't have a whole lot to play for. I would say that, we're just a fun team to watch. We have a lot of freak athletes, which is always enjoyable. It'll be nice just seeing us piss a lot of other teams off when we beat them, especially once Big 12 play starts, because it's like we'll beat them and it doesn't matter. But, I've still been watching a lot of the games. I just think we're a fun team to watch. Everyone knows that my favorite time is college basketball. So,
yeah, and I wasn't really able. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't hear that.
Right. I've got 2 games on right now. So,
oh, nice.
Nobody games.
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch as much as I would like. Like, I watched the game last week against NC State. That was great. Good to get a win there. But I didn't get to see much last night. I think as we continue playing games, I'll get to watch more as it slows down too. I love watching the matchups when they're actually playing. Like I know we play USC coming up. We have Wichita State, Xavier. So that'll be nice to kind of see what we look like before Big 12 play. But yeah, I think like Jake said, we look like we're very fun to watch. A lot of guys, like there's not one player that you're just like, wow, he's just absolutely terrible. This is not fun. Like I think everybody brings something to the team and has that excitement. And we have so many new players that can bring it too. So I think that's cool to see, and it should be fun year to hopefully run through these teams and win the Big 12.
We at least got to try to win in the regular season side, because we know we can't win the Big 12.
Oh, we're gonna win the Big 12. We're gonna do it.
I feel the confidence. I also like the fact that Texas is having such a hard time getting their students to go to games right now. They are offering a $10 tickets to get for their students, but on the other hand, Oklahoma State offered $1 tickets last night. So what am I saying? But it's kind of funny. They're through winter break. Texas is offering just call their box office and $10 tickets. So I don't know why I just advertised Texas tickets, besides the fact to make fun of them, but they can't sell them.
They're just still trying to figure it out because they're just so depleted from the football program. So, They're just
Yeah, I mean, football really runs the state of Texas. So when the Texas football team doesn't do well, the whole state just takes just a sour day. I won't be surprised if Baylor just goes, you know what, Texas couldn't pull it out in football this year. What are we even doing? Why try to be in the Big 12 championship? We're just going to take them out.
This just came to my mind, and I have to say it because if anybody listens to this, then they need to know just in case they missed it. And I know you guys didn't catch it, but I completely forgot to just call out that Acho guy. What's his first name? Emmanuel
There's
Acho.
also Sam. There's Emmanuel.
I think it was Emmanuel.
I forget, but yeah.
And Chris Peterson, because those guys sounded like literally the biggest clowns I've ever. I'm not even kidding. Like, I've heard really dumb crap from people before, but that was like, I was literally sitting there with my jaw open. Like, did they just say that? Like, they literally showed and proved that they haven't watched more than that half of an Oklahoma State game all year, because their statement was, well, Oklahoma State, they've got one loss in the Big 12. And if it came down to Oklahoma, still giving Oklahoma a shot at this, giving Oklahoma and compare Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, you just got to say Oklahoma is just a sexier pick because they just have a better offense. That was what they said. That was their analysis of Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. So
it's just the dumbest thing I've heard in a while. But I mean, it's just a name thing. It's just a name thing. We all know it exists. It's weird to hear it that profoundly and clear on a broadcast for them to say it just like, disgusting. Oh yeah, this is the name. It's like, dude, yeah, you played at UT, so you hate OSU because we've beat you guys every year going back the past 10 years. We win the record over the past decade easily against you guys. So I'm sure you hate us there. And also Chris Peterson, like, didn't we just beat? Oh yeah, we just beat Boise State this year.
That's why that dude's not coaching.
Won the records.
He's a freaking idiot.
And like, for whatever it is, like, have you become a commentator? Cool, but I gotta say, Chris Peterson and Acho, like, don't talk bad about a school you don't know much about. Just say, I know guys cannot say, oh, I haven't watched them. You can't say that, but what you can say is you can just go, well, coming into the season, OU was top 4. OSU's coming as more of a dark horse. You can say that. You can get away with that just fine. You can't say the other way around where it's, well, OU would just be more fun.
Right.
That's just a bummer to hear.
Stupid.
But with all that being said, it's time. We have a celebrity guest picker with us here in Luke. So I'm going to hand Luke my phone while he tries to find a game that he wants to have us all guest pick. Okay? And in the meantime here, I'll ask you guys to pick this game coming up here this weekend, which we already picked the OSU OU game in Bedlam. So the other game that's big for us, as Big 12 fans here, is, of course, Alabama Auburn. Oh, excuse me. No, I'm so sorry. Ohio State, Michigan. So you guys know where I was at with this. So Jake, I'll ask you first. Who you got, Ohio State versus Michigan?
I think Ohio State beats the ever-living garbage out of them.
And don't we want that to happen, kind of? Just Ohio State solidifies their spot. There's not like a weird, 2-win, 2-team in there.
I will personally be pulling for Michigan just so I can see Ohio State's demise. Because I think, hypothetically, if OSU were to win out, they would probably have a better shot of, I say this now, they would have a better shot of jumping Michigan than they would Ohio State. If Ohio State were to, or if Michigan were to do the same thing that we were to do.
Fair enough. All right. Well, so Jake, you got Ohio State. Lexi?
Yeah. The committee better hope that Ohio State doesn't lose, because they'll be crying very, very much. But I think Ohio State wins. I just can't see Michigan winning. I haven't really seen them play much this year, but from what I did see, they just did not impress me. So I'll just say Ohio State wins like they do usually every year.
I'm just going to say Ohio State as well to be the third in a row. Luke, who are you taking, Ohio State or Michigan?
I'm going with Ohio State for sure. I mean, yeah, Ohio State's just better.
All right, so that's 4 Ohio States. Luke, what game do you want to pick here for all of us to pick, basically, including yourself? What game are you looking at?
It's tough because the only 2 ranked matchups in college football coming up are, of course, Bedlam and Michigan State, or Michigan versus Ohio State. But honestly, I'm excited to see Clemson to see if they can keep the ball rolling and see what they can do against. Oh gosh.
South Carolina.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, see what they can do against South Carolina.
So who are you picking in that game? To Clemson or South Carolina?
I'm taking Clemson, but I mean, I think it'll be a shootout, and I think it'll be fun to watch.
All right. Well, I'm gonna just take Clemson as well. I don't. Isn't South Carolina still on like their like fourth quarterback of the season who was like a grad transfer coach or something?
Yeah, something like that.
So, with that being said,
They have a new guy now.
oh, okay. Well, with all being said here, I will. I'll just take Clemson. Go orange, I guess, over South Carolina. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a skin in the game here, but I'll just take Clemson for the name recognition. To be honest.
Yeah, I'll take Clemson on this one.
Jake, you gonna clean sweep Clemson as well, or are you gonna take South Carolina?
I am sorry to my sister. My sister went to South Carolina, so I'm forced to keep up with that dumpster fire of an athletic program.
So who are you taking?
Clemson.
Clemson. All right. So that's 4 Clemsons. All right. Jake or Alexi, whatever you guys got a game you want to throw in there for us to pick here.
Trying to look for a good one real quick.
Jake, you got one?
Yeah, let's do the Egg Bowl.
Okay.
Do Ole Miss, Mississippi State. They play. Is it Thursday? Do they play Thursday?
Yeah. Yeah, it's on Thursday night. Yep. It's Thursday. Yeah.
Where is it?
It says it's at Mississippi State, unless it's not a neutral site, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah, the Mississippi State.
Okay. I'm gonna take Mississippi State.
Okay.
Make that 2. I will also take Mississippi State.
All right. Let's see here. So Mississippi State's favored, is that right? By 1? Is that I'm reading that correctly?
Yes.
Or
According to this, they are.
well, you know what? Screw it though. I'm gonna take Ole Miss. They're the ranked team. I'm gonna take Ole Miss. Screw it. I've been wrong about like every SEC team I picked this whole year. I picked Auburn for a little bit, then they lost every game I picked them in. Then I picked A&M, they lost too. So I'm just gonna take Ole Miss, and we'll see what happens here. All right. So Jake and Alexi both have Mississippi State. I have Ole Miss. Luke, what are you taking?
I'm taking Mississippi State.
All right. It's gonna be Mississippi State. All right, Alexi.
All right, so
The last game here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go for what looks like a close game and a decent matchup. So Penn State, Michigan State. Penn State somehow is favored by 1. Kind of surprised about that. I'm gonna take Penn State just because I want to take them. No reason. Penn State's my pick.
All right.
Where is the game?
Michigan State.
All right, I'm taking Michigan State.
I
All
see
right.
the line and I'm like,
All right.
I'm just going
All right.
Penn State.
What's the line here?
-1. Penn State.
-1 Penn State.
Yeah.
So Alexi just went the line. Jake just went Michigan State, the higher ranked team, I'm assuming. I am going to say I'll root for Sparty. I've never lived in the state of Pennsylvania, but I've lived in the state of Michigan, so I'll just take Michigan State for basically only that reason. Also, James Franklin signed a 10-year contract, which doesn't mean anything because he's still going to leave for USC at the end of the season. So, anyways, I'm taking Michigan State. Jake's got Michigan State. Alexi's taking Penn State. Luke, who you got?
Gotta go green.
All right, gotta go Michigan State. All right, well, I think that that wraps us up here. I think, right? Jake's got Orange and Clemson. We all took basically Ohio State. We all took Clemson, and then it was split the rest of the way, at least a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Does Texas make a bowl game this year?
Nope.
Oh wait, they can't. I just want to throw that in here at the end.
They're already ineligible.
I'll see if my roommate Patrick listened to the whole entire podcast this week or not because of that one comment.
Texas and Nebraska can play each other for the has-beens.
Wait, we should do a bonus and do will Texas win their last game of the year because
they play K-State.
They're playing K-State.
They're favored. It's a home game. 11 a.m.